If you're an American, you likely have a car. And if you commute to work over a moderate distance, you've likely used one of America's interstate highways. But do highways make our lives easier? Or are there better ways to design travel? Let's find out. Over the last 70 years, interstate highways have been built all over the US. Some are long and expansive, while others are shorter and smaller. All of them connect to each other, creating the interstate highway system. Dwight D. Eisenhower was an admired general during World War II and became the President of the United States in 1952. During his time in Europe, Eisenhower saw the efficiency of the German Autobahn system, one of the first large-scale highway systems in the world. When he became president, he wanted a similar system built in the US because he believed that if a military invasion were to happen, an efficient highway system would be better equipped to handle it than a rail system. As a younger Army officer in the 1910s, Eisenhower did like the effectiveness of the Lincoln Highway, the original highway system based on U.S. designations. However, the U.S. system was becoming dated with the increase in car traffic and interstate cargo transport. 4 years into Eisenhower's presidency, the Interstate Highway System was authorized by the administration as the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. From then on, the system began expansion. The very first segment of the interstate completed was I-70 in Topeka, Kansas in 1956. Thereafter, construction began on many pre-existing U.S. highways, including the famous U.S. 66. In Missouri, construction and expansion of U.S. 66 began in 1956, with eventually the highway becoming I-44. Throughout the 1960s, construction intensified. Nebraska became the first state to complete all of its principal interstates in 1974. Many other states completed theirs in the coming years. In 1992, I-70 through the Glenwood Canyon in Colorado was the last of the principal interstates completed. The whole project cost roughly $114 billion, inflated to nearly $600 billion today. The construction of the interstate highway system didn't come without opposition. In major cities, plans for interstates went directly through neighborhoods, which would mean demolitions for many homes and businesses and split communities. While some plans went through, others were abandoned. One such was I-95 in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. Initially, the plans were to go directly through Washington, D.C. and the peripheral suburbs. Instead, the I-495 Capital Beltway was constructed around the entire city. Another was I-70 in Baltimore. The plans were for the highway to run from the western side of the Baltimore Beltway to I-95. But it never happened because if constructed, it would have gone through the Gwen Falls Lincoln Park, an urban wildlife refuge. Today, I-70, a nearly 2,200-mile cross-country highway, ends at a park and ride in Baltimore. So, do interstate highways help or hurt America? Well, they've done both. Let's start with the hurt side. One negative of highways is community change. When many of the highways were constructed starting in the 1950s, many of the routes dissected or destroyed homes and businesses within municipalities, especially in older urban areas. Homeowners and business owners directly affected by this would get paid by the government for their losses, but they'd have to relocate to new places. This was especially hard in close-knit communities, as it ultimately split families and friends apart. Another negative of highways is the direct and indirect environmental impact. Directly, highways traverse wooded areas, which degrades ecosystems. Ecosystem loss can create possible extinctions for certain fauna and flora species. Also, with fauna, many are affected by long highway crosses. When animals try to cross to the other side, they have a high chance of becoming roadkill. Lots of deer, bear, and smaller animals such as raccoons and skunks are victims. But of course, the turkey vultures and other scavenger birds love the opportunities. Indirectly, the use of highways creates pollution. Although we are seeing a slow transition to fully electric vehicles, many vehicles on the road are still gasoline or diesel powered. Today's internal combustion engines are way cleaner than they once were. However, they still emit pollutants into the air, such as sulfur dioxides, nitrogen dioxides, and carbon monoxide. When there are thousands upon thousands of vehicles on the road, high levels of pollutants can be generated locally and eventually enter the upper atmosphere, increasing the rate of things such as global warming. A third negative of highways is laziness. Cars and highways have made travel easier, but easier isn't always better. Since Americans have easier access to cars, this leads to less walking. Less walking amounts to less physical activity, thus increasing the rate of obesity. Now, let's examine the help side. First, highways have contributed to extremely easy accessibility. Interstates link cities and suburbs together. With these links, highways can take people from point A to point B in a matter of minutes, as opposed to double or triple the time of taking local roads. Look at this example. A trip from Union, New Jersey to Easton, Pennsylvania takes 47 minutes on I-78. But by excluding the use of interstate highways like 78, the same trip would take 1 hour 27 minutes, 40 minutes longer. And this is still even using US 22. Accessibility with interstates allows Americans to travel to work and leisure activities with ease. A second positive of highways is freight transportation. Every day, thousands of tractor-trailers transport goods across the country. They use the interstate highway systems, which allow these trucks to travel hundreds and thousands of miles. Without these vital links, freight transport would be severely affected, leading to shortages of many routine products needed. Of course, the U.S. does have a world-class freight rail system. However, highway freight links are needed to supplement. Another plus of highways is tourism opportunities. Interstate highways connect major cities to each other. People wanting to take local or national trips to another American city can just use one of the many highways to travel on. Not only is this convenient, but it also helps economies by bringing people to cities to spend money. And interstates connect people to remote areas, such as national parks and state parks, which also drums up businesses to local rural communities. So, what alternatives are there to interstate highways? Well, it's complicated, especially in a country where the car is king. One alternative can be high-speed rail. Historically, trains were the way to travel in the late 19th century and early 20th century. But when the car was mass assembled by Henry Ford, cars became more and more commonplace, and by the 1970s, most Americans drove rather than take the train. The civilian railroad industry suffered tremendously, and many rail companies went bankrupt. As of today, the only national long-distance rail service available in America is Amtrak. The Amtrak Acela train has capabilities of going over 150 miles an hour. However, outdated tracks and unfavorable crossings over roads significantly limit the speed. The California High-Speed Rail Authority is trying to make an efficient high-speed rail system in California. Although there is a proficient plan in place, there are many hurdles, including funding, legal issues, and opposition. It'll likely be years, if not decades, until the system is complete. Another alternative is compact city planning. Many newer American cities are sprawled out. Sprawling out horizontally creates a need of more highways and roads. If cities are designed more compactly and vertically, the need for cars decreases and mass transit and walkability increases. Look at Europe. A majority of cities are compact and dense, limiting the need for cars. But in the United States, physical geography plays a role in that the largeness of the nation and the preference of citizens to live in suburban and rural areas limits the process of compact city design. A last alternative that works even in less dense areas is a concept called new urbanism. New urbanism is an urban planning concept which mixes zoning. For example, commercial businesses may be on the ground floor, while residential dwellings may be on the upper floors. People living in these dwellings can simply go downstairs and shop and eat without even leaving the premises. Even in car-oriented states such as Florida, new urbanist communities are becoming more and more commonplace, such as places like Seaside and Celebration, Florida. And many new developments being built now incorporate new urbanistic designs. Interstate highways are a fabric of American culture. Whether they're a positive or negative influence is questionable. It's based on preference and opinion. I, for one, am neutral and listen to all sides of the argument. So what do you think? Are interstate highways a good thing or a bad thing for the United States? If you'd like to chime in, leave your comment below. Thank you again for watching this episode.